Well, thank you. I will say one thing. Um, I my camera is above my computer. So when I'm looking at the camera, I can't see your faces. So if I look like I'm looking at the floor, I'm actually looking at you guys. That because I like to see your faces. So forgive me for that. But I'm very happy to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation to speak today. Some of you know me from Jackson, but for those who don't, I will share a little bit about my background. So, as you know, my name is Amanda Deer, and I was born and raised in Simpson County, Mississippi. So, my family's been living here in Mississippi for several generations, and we originally came from part of my family was from Scotland and Wales, and the rest of my family was from Italy and Spain. So all over Europe, um, in through Virginia and North Carolina, and then down to Mississippi. And that's where we stayed, and most of us are still here today. So although I don't have ancestral roots here, I feel a really deep connection with the land here along the Mississippi River. And this land really vibrates and moves and has a rhythm that speaks to my spirit. And for anybody with ears to hear it, then you know what I'm talking about. So I was a very curious child, and I often asked really weird questions so that no one really had an answer for them, but I was determined to find those answers. So I first turned to my local Baptist church, and I found that I was often discouraged from asking questions. And I was told that if I didn't understand, then it's because my faith wasn't strong enough. You know, at this time I was maybe 12 years old, and I wanted to understand. I wanted to have that blind faith, and I wanted to feel a deep trust in deity, you know, um, but it wasn't working for me. I remember as a child really praying desperately for God to just take my questions away so that I could believe completely. Well, needless to say, that didn't work for me, and I began to look elsewhere. Fortunately, my family were the open minded sort, and my mother would bring me books on many different world religions. And during my search, I stumbled across a book about Wicca. And I'm sure if you practice at all, that you've likely heard of it. It was Scott Cunningham's Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner. So this really unassuming book spoke to me. I was about 14 years old at that point, and the idea of magic and mystery really excited me. So I started digging in and reading everything I could get my hands on, from books on theology, mythology, theosophy, hermetics, quantum physics, astrology, and anything that would pull back the veil and show me kind of a glimpse of the mechanics of the universe. And I was hooked. So paganism allowed me the space to ask all the questions that I wanted to ask and the tools to seek out the answers for myself. I spent the early years of my practice reading to myself and practicing anything I could find in books. I also got married twice. I had a child twice, and I worked many jobs, mostly in theater and dance or the arts, and that's where most of my professional training is, but also in banking, if you can believe that. And at this point, my entire practice had been without any real mentorship or training. And I felt like I was at a bit of a crossroads. I didn't know really how to find the next step to go deeper. And everything I had read and experienced sort of swirled around in my mind, untethered, and pulling it all together seemed just out of my reach. But this came to a head at my husband's grandmother's funeral. I was a little bit of an outsider. I was an in-law of just a few years, and I knew Momo, but I didn't know her well. And I was in a very, very small Baptist church, so I was a little outside my comfort zone. And I just looked out at all the people that came and cooked for the family, and all the people holding up the family and making sure that everything was taken care of, you know? And that's when it really hit me, this overwhelming sort of sadness, because what would my funeral look like? I was a solitary practitioner at the time. Who would be there to support my husband and my children and help them carry that loss? So that's when I started feeling a really deep need for supportive pagan community, and I started to look for real training. And as it turned out, through a good friend of mine at the time, and now my sister-in-law, I was asked to take a class that was being hosted at the Jackson UU from the Temple of Witchcraft. So I thought, okay, sure, I'll take a witchcraft class. Now remember, I was pagan and I did not like the word witch, but I went anyway, and I loved the material that we were learning, and it really brought together things for me that seemed disconnected. So I fell in love with the people in my class, and through a lot of hard work, the community grew from there. And that was 9 years ago. So at that point, only the first few levels of training were being taught locally. So then I studied online with Christopher Penczak for the next 5 years, and I really found my community that I was looking for. The teacher that taught my first class moved away, and I inherited the running of local Sabbats in Jackson. In 2019, I completed seminary training and became a high priestess and teacher in the Temple of Witchcraft. And last year, I was ordained as a minister with the temple. So I teach classes on witchcraft, psychic development, ritual mechanics, shamanic techniques, Hermetic Kabbalah, astrology, community building, and ascension magic. And I've really found a home in the Mississippi pagan community. And I'm happy to be able to serve the people of Mississippi and give back to those that came before me and opened the door for me. So as far as my personal practice, I work really deeply with Hecate, Selene, and Artemis. My spirituality is sort of informed by everything I've learned and everything I've experienced over the years. I am Temple of Witchcraft tradition, which really encourages finding and using what works for you. So the meaning of magic is change in accordance with will. The more you seek magic, the more you'll experience transformation in all of its various forms. The path of the witch is ever evolving, and it is not always comfortable. It isn't always bright, which brings me to the point of what I want to discuss with you today. So my talk later today is about embracing sacred darkness. And I've noticed a problematic issue in many spiritual communities. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. And this is when people are discouraged from feeling, experiencing, or more importantly, expressing any unpleasant feelings or thoughts. They're told that if you're truly spiritual, then you won't have these problems. If you think positive thoughts, then all you can draw are positive circumstances. Well, this is very problematic for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's diminishing to the person that's experiencing pain or often depression or grief. These are natural emotions, and it's really dangerous to say that people bring all bad experiences to themselves. Maybe if each human lived in a bubble, we could have that discussion. But as it is, we're all connected and we all influence each other, and our circumstances are tied together, and many things are simply out of our control. Of course, we can choose how we respond to various situations and make choices that bring us closer to consistent happiness and peace, but no one is immune to disruption or grief, no matter how spiritually enlightened they are. In fact, the most compassionate, loving, joyful, and generous people that I know are those that have suffered deeply and have to fight for their joy. That being said, I think this focus only on the positive as valuable has further reaching effects than emotional and psychological damage. We as a society tend to value only good feelings, happiness, joy, wealth. Anything else is not only not worth having, but it's vilified. Darkness, anger, hatred, shame, guilt, poverty, depression, as if all of these are expressions of personal value rather than experiences to learn and grow from. So I'd like to share with you a story. And this story is an edited version of a story written by Erica Barron. And Erica's a good friend of mine. She's a minister in the Temple of Witchcraft, and she's also a UU minister in New England. And Erica's story was written for Yule. The story is told that in the beginning, there were two gods who were brothers. And like many brothers, they struggled with each other for ascendance and power. One brother was the king of the forces of life, light, and warmth, and he wore a crown made of green oak branches and brought with him all growth and vitality, fertility, and abundance. His brother was the king of the forces of death, cold, and darkness. He wore a crown made of the prickly holly branches and brought with him all withering and decay, stillness, and hibernation. The brothers were identical in strength, and year after year, the same pattern was repeated. Each year, the first brother would grow strong and mighty during his time of dominance. The light would gradually increase, bringing with it warmth and abundance. But each year, at the height of his power, he would be thrown down by the second brother. In the wake of the dark god's victory, the light would gradually wane, and as it did, cold would come, and the land would go dormant. But at the height of the dark god's power, he would be challenged again by the god of light and would fall. And the cycle would repeat again and again and again. Alone, the brothers were equals, but soon humans would come to populate the earth. The people watched this cycle, and before long, they began to take sides. The people loved light and warmth, and they feared darkness and cold. And so each year, they would celebrate the victory of the god of light, and they would mourn the victory of the dark god. When the two struggled with each other, the people would lend the strength of their voices and their bodies, their minds and their spirits to the god of light, but the dark god was without their support. And so time went by. The people's adoration of warmth and light only grew. And so they began to invent new ways to find light in the darkness and warmth in the cold, until finally, if they wished it, they could spend all of their time in the light they had created, and they could be warm all year long. But their efforts to stay always in the light and the warmth were not without consequence. Generations passed and generations again, and people did not at first notice the shifts in the balance. There came a time when they could ignore it no longer. The people began to notice that darkness was disappearing from the land, driven out by millions of lights the people had created. Animals, birds, plants, even people began to suffer the effects of light unbalanced by darkness. But it was not just darkness that was disappearing. Cold would begin to flee as well. The whole world began to grow warmer. Summer began sooner and lasted longer. Ice that had been frozen far longer than the longest memory of the oldest person in the land began to melt. Fires raged for months on end. Migrating birds and animals became confused about when to begin the migration, and so their numbers dwindled. Plants found themselves rooted in climates that no longer supported their needs, and so they withered. The air was changing, and the winds that had brought rain and taken it away again began to flow in unexpected directions, causing drought here and flood there. The people began to see that their support of warmth and light over cold and darkness had altered the balance of the whole world. They began slowly, one at a time, to realize that the dark god was dying. And for the first time, this thought filled them with terror. What would happen if the balance continued to be destroyed? Could they even survive in a world without the dark god? And in the world of the gods, the god of light realized it too. And though they had been competitors all these many centuries, he also realized that he loved his brother deeply and he could not live without him. The longest night came, and the God of light and the God of darkness met again. But this time, the God of light had no heart for the fight. He laid down his sword and spear. He came open-handed to his brother, who was struggling to stay on his feet. The God of light wrapped the dark God in a tight embrace, and he promised to set aside their enmity to help his brother heal. On the night when he usually claimed descendants, he realized that the world was already too warm and too light. And so he laid the great oak crown upon the head of his brother, took his hand, and each supporting the other, they went out into the world to see what could be done to restore the balance. This story illustrates a good point. We tend to conflate light with goodness, happiness, intelligence, prosperity, maleness, whiteness, spirituality. And we conflate darkness with evil and anger, weakness, fear, femininity, blackness, immorality. These are false equivalences. When we focus all our hopes and all our energy on things we consider to be light and good while vilifying its opposite, we create an imbalance. And that doesn't just affect us as individuals or even as humans. Our thoughts and actions radiate out across the web of interconnections that we share with all living things on this planet. For many generations, the dominant religions of our species have focused on a singular, masculine, solar deity, or a triplicity of solar masculine deities. Deities whose job was to banish the darkness, and so we have. And at what cost? You can watch the role of women over time diminish from the goddess cults of early peoples to the patriarchal churches of the Middle Ages. So do our societies reflect our spirituality, or does our spirituality reflect our society? Do they both shift in tandem? How do we bring honor to the divine feminine, the sacred darkness, the lunar tides of spirit? How do we do that without diminishing the light or the masculine? Can we hold both of those truths simultaneously? I think this is part of the reason there's been such a huge surge of paganism and goddess worship and feminism in recent decades. So how do we balance these ideas, and how do we balance the effects of our past actions? How do we move forward? Well, it won't be easy or pretty or gentle, and that's okay. I thought it was interesting in the story that Erica alluded to global warming and environmental damage from over-exalting the light and warmth. And what would happen if we embraced the darkness? What would happen if we put out our electric lights at night and rested rather than working? What if we gathered around the hearth fire rather than running quite so many electric heaters? What if we passed on the stories of our ancestors rather than spending quite so much time on social media? What if we listened to the lessons of the earth and rested in the winter months rather than pretending that nothing at all has changed? What if our government and our society honored the cycles of the seasons and our own circadian rhythms? What do you think we could accomplish if we worked in tandem with our bodies and our planet and the other creatures that we share her with? We have so much intelligence and creativity. Are we wasting it so we can produce so much of nothing, so much waste? And we're all exhausted, and we're frustrated, and we're pressed for time. But that's an illusion of our own making. You know, the world continues just as it always has, and it will long after we have burnt ourselves into extinction, taking the other creatures along with us. So many myths speak of light stealers. Prometheus comes to mind. Prometheus was a titan in the Greek mythos. He was a god of fire and a trickster. Prometheus is responsible for the creation of humans and stealing fire from the gods to give back to humans. This is the fire of creative power, which is supposed to protect humans from the forces of nature, since we are not very well suited to survive on our own planet without our tools. Prometheus paid dearly for his theft. He was chained to a rock And each day, an eagle, representing divine wisdom and higher thoughts, would devour his liver, the seat of emotion and passion in the body. And each day it would grow back and the eagle would come again. So this myth teaches us the dangers of over fascination with the light. What is the cost for our ingenuity? And there are many tales and myths of the hero seeking to return the light to the people. And always they must travel through death and fear and darkness to locate the light. And universally, the hero finds their strength and learns who they are and what gifts they carry, not after they have found the light, but while they journey through the darkness. While sitting with the darkness and the silence and the unknown, do we see what we are made of? So I'm going to take a pause here. And Jessica.
You can go ahead.
That was beautiful, Jessica. Thank you. So why do we fear the darkness? I believe that it's a fear of the unknown, a fear of what might be lurking unseen and unexpected. This isn't a fear of the dark. This is a fear of what the dark might reveal. The unknown makes us feel out of control. We don't know what might happen, but being in the light doesn't change what's coming. Maybe it's not as easy to sneak up on us, but we still don't know what's around the next bend or what will come of it. Our desire to control our surroundings, understandable, it causes us to run from the darkness. Imagine that the darkness might reveal, instead of terrors and death, maybe if you give your ears time to adjust to the silence, you'll see that you can hear much more clearly in the darkness. Maybe if you give your eyes time to adjust, you'll find that the stars illuminate an entirely different landscape in the nighttime. Maybe you'll find that your skin is more sensitive to sensation in the darkness. Maybe you'll find that you might be your very best, most powerful self in the still moments of quiet and peaceful darkness. Maybe these are the times of the greatest growth and expansion, and that is scary. What if you have the potential to be everything you ever dreamed of being? What if it was within you all along, but you were too afraid to step into the darkness and give yourself permission to be your own beacon? Think about the times that we spend in darkness. Initially in the womb, we experience the most growth during those 9 months of darkness. We sleep, and when our body sleeps, we do the most healing, the most processing mentally and emotionally. When we sleep, we naturally travel the other worlds in our dreams, and our guides speak to us. They speak to us of the nature of spirit and the divine in nature. When we don't sleep enough, we become ill. Our minds are sluggish, our pain increases, and we're less able to handle stressful situations. People really struggle with sleep these days. We know that exposure to artificial light disrupts our sleep cycles. Too much blue light can actually damage our eyes and throws all sorts of body functions out of balance, including our appetite, energy, mood, sleep, libido, and other body functions. Another time we sit in darkness is during meditation. And we all know the benefits of meditation. This is the journey back to the womb, the cave, the journey back to the Great Mother, the space for healing, for rapid growth, for spiritual and mental expansion and awakening. I think I like that word better than enlightenment. Maybe we need to think of endarkenment as well, creating a sacred womb. Of course, we do find other things in the darkness as well. We find all the fears and traumas that we've pushed down into that place that we don't want to go to anyway. Our shadow lives in the darkness. But the shadow is not something to run away from or to hide from. The shadow is every bit a part of you, and it's a very powerful aspect of yourself. And doing the work to integrate the shadow is life-changing. Confronting your fears, healing your traumas, and just coming to terms with all the things that you don't like about yourself can do more for expanding your consciousness and connecting to divinity than you might realize. Merging with your shadow reveals the divinity that already resides within you. And that's not pretty work. It's messy, it's painful, and terrifying at times, but it's worth it. And if you come away with a deeper understanding of the human experience and the journey of the human soul as well. Recognition of the importance of the darkness isn't enough, however. You have to embrace it. You have to plant yourself deeply in it and work through what comes up. So I challenge you to pause, a good long pause. Sit in silence. Turn off your devices, not just now, after. Turn off your music. Turn off your lights. Go outside. Maybe when it's not so cold. Maybe when it is, you know? Sit until it's miserable and then sit some more. Clear your calendar for a few months and see what happens when you dedicate real time to your healing and your growth and to listening to yourself. It's not easy. And we all have bills to pay. I definitely get that. 2020 was a difficult year, but it was also an opportunity in many ways. Some were blessed with continued work and the ability to work from home. Some were blessed with time to rest and learn new things. Some were absolutely torn to shreds financially, emotionally, and mentally. Some were slowly exhausted from trying to force the same level of activity when the universe is saying stay home and rest. And many have lost loved ones, myself included. Many have been sick and struggled through recovery in isolation. I don't take lightly the challenges of 2020 brought to us all, but I do recognize shadow work when I see it. So much ugliness has been brought to the surface that we know has been seething for generations. Likewise, so much beauty has been brought to the surface too. People that were able to find new levels of independence and strength and creativity that they didn't know they were capable of. So the question is, what do we do with the rest of this pause? We're still going to be dealing with this for, probably another 9 months. So my advice is to plant yourself firmly in this moment and germinate. And once you begin to recognize who you are and what you alone bring to the great tapestry of the universe, it's time to lay down roots, dig into the soil, and do the work of growing your abilities, your power, your compassion. Think of what you can do to contribute to those around you. But before you can be of service to others, you have to cultivate a nourishing spiritual soil to grow from. And what does that look like? Well, I imagine it's a little different for everyone. For myself, meditation is key. Journaling is key. Taking time for my own learning is key. Communing with my gods and guides is key. Connecting with those that are wiser than myself is key. Sharing what I've experienced and opening the door for others is key. Taking wisdom wherever I can find it is key. Creating art is a key. So I have a whole ring of keys. Imagine how many doors you can unlock if you discover what your key elements of spiritual nourishment are. So I would like to take a minute and share some. I want to hear how you guys prepare your spiritual soil. So feel free to unmute and speak up if you feel moved.
You can type it in the chat, or you can just unmute and speak it into the space. Amanda, for me, it's yoga, and I haven't done it enough lately, and particularly yin, which is the yielding side of yoga, not the effortful side. So
that can bring up a lot of stuff, a lot of dealing with vulnerability and sacrifice. Yeah.
And giving up control.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
For me, it's spending time in nature outside.
I love your birds, by the way.
My video killed a while ago because one of them jumped on the keyboard and killed it.
Oh no.
Anybody else?
I practice.
William?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Along with my Zen meditation that I practice daily, I literally dig into my, by using my garden as a source of
Yeah.
my herbal garden and my vegetable and flower gardens.
Just putting your hands in the dirt. Oh my gosh. It changes you.
I have an idea that you cannot get closer to God than putting your hands in the dirt.
I would agree.
Smell God, you can smell God, feel God, watch God in action.
Yep.
It's too dangerous for me to do that. I draw blood.
Oh no.
Richard says in the chat that he needs to create art, which for a performer is very challenging, but still possible in the world as it is today.
I feel you on that one, Richard. Big time.
I've been
For me,
surprised.
for me, it's, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. For me, it's my art, which is fiber art, primarily embroidery, and also my drumming.
Oh, I've experienced your drumming. It's one of my keys too. I'll add that to my basket.
Rita.
I've always been a very active person, and going away from home has always been I've been surprised at how much I enjoy staying at home and the routine of just, like you said, doing nothing and pleasuring yourself in doing nothing. It's been really eye-opening for me.
I agree with you on that. My husband has been working from home since March, and you know, it's been absolutely wonderful. It's been wonderful just having my family here and focusing on my house and my home and my family. Like, I forget to love my house. I complain about it a lot. I'm awful to it, but it's my shelter, you know, it's my sanctuary. And I've been treating it like that this year. And it's changed a lot about just my own experience of being in this space. I've made my home sacred. So I feel that.
There's a rootedness
Like Wanda
in that.
with her bird.
Like
Wanda with her bird.
Yeah.
I want to say, Amanda, that I identify so much with what you talked about the searching. And I found a lot of comfort, a lot of inspiration in reading more of the stories of other cultures, of other religions, of other civilizations, because I think keeping alive those stories give us insight into a different way of looking at things. I know learning about the Greek and Roman gods and at a very early age made me look at things a lot different than the church that I went to looked at them. But I think the old stories give us a lot of inspiration.
I agree.
Along with gardening.
Yes. No, I agree. Just the act of storytelling and passing on what you'll see common threads throughout so many different cultures. And I think those common threads speak to a universal mystery, you know, a universal experience of the divine. And so I absolutely agree. So I think that was some really beautiful sharing, and I thank you so much for sharing with me. And I really want to encourage you to take the time to put all of those tools to use, even if it's just a minute or two a day. You know, if you have 10 seconds to spend on your spirit, do it. If you have an hour, do that. If you have only an hour a week, take it, you know, and maybe cancel some appointments. But try not to compare your journey or the needs of your spiritual work to anyone else, because your path is your own, your recovery is your own, your divinity is your own, and your line in the great song is yours, and it can only be sung by you. So dig into your darkness in this winter season, in this pandemic cycle, and really embrace the sacred within. And thank you for having me. I will be doing a meditation in about, I think, 15 minutes. Is that the plan?
Yeah, if you can stay, we knew
Yeah.
it would run a little long otherwise, but so if you're willing and able to stay, we are going to do a guided meditation at noon. But we're going to close out our service here and do our normal joys and concerns for a few minutes. But that was beautiful, Amanda. Thank you very much.
All right. So if everybody will just take a minute and tune in and get comfortable, whatever your body needs for you for a meditation. And I want you to close your eyes and relax. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax your body, starting from the top of your head. Relax your jaw. Relax your neck. Relax your shoulders. Relax your arms. Breathe deeply. Relax your waist and your hips. Relax your thighs and your knees. Settle into your body. Relax your calves and your shins. Relax your fingers and toes. Let waves of relaxation wash over your body. Relax your mind. Release any unhelpful thoughts. Relax your heart. Let go of any unhelpful feelings from the day and breathe. Feel your lungs move. And as I count down, I want you to picture the numbers I'm saying on the screen of your mind. Picture the number 12. 12. And see it float away as you picture the number 11. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Breathe deeply. You're in a meditative state where all is possible. And let us go deeper. This time as I count down, don't picture the numbers. Just let my voice wash over you, taking you down. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You are now in your deepest meditative state, where all that happens is for your highest good and harming none, and you are in complete control of all your powers and abilities. Imagine before you on the screen of your mind a great tree, the world tree, the Axis Mundi, the soul of the world. And this tree is the largest tree that you have ever seen. with branches reaching up to the cosmos and roots digging deep, deep into the underworld. Step through the screen of your mind and approach the tree. And place your hands upon it. Feel the bark beneath your fingers. The world around you is winter. There's a chill in the air and leaves scattering across the ground in the breeze. As you place your hands upon the tree, ask that we have the safest possible journey to the underworld, to sit in darkness and find the sacred within. And the tree opens before you, and a path is revealed leading down, down, down into the deep earth. And you step into that darkness, and you feel your way along the passage, spiraling down into the left, down into the left. As you move, you cannot see what's around you, but you can feel the earth. You can smell the damp earth around you. You feel a chill on your skin as the wind begins to move and the tunnel opens up before you. And you hear the sound of rushing water in the distance. And your senses are pricked up, and you follow the sound of that water, moving carefully, carefully through the darkness, stepping carefully so that you don't trip, and you feel the rocky ground beneath you. And you begin to get a sense of what's around you. Before long, you no longer have to feel your way. The path seems clear, a magnetic pull drawing you towards the water. And you come to the edge of a flowing river, and you hear the sounds of birds in the night. And you sit at this riverbank, and you just listen, and you breathe. And we hear in the shadows the echoes of our fears and all the things we tell ourselves that limit us. We don't shut this voice out. We just listen. And we ask ourselves if these things are true. And we find that even if they are, we can change them. We don't have to live in the past. We get to decide what the future unfolds for us. And we respond to those whispers, either to say, no, this isn't true. Or if it is, say, I have learned that lesson, and that is not who I will be going forward. And we feel the shadows begin to blend and merge with the other shadows, the shadows of trees and birds. And we begin to think deeply about our gifts and what we have to offer the world. And if nothing is coming to you, that's okay. Trust that you are valuable. The universe does not come with spare parts. You all have a journey ahead of you and plenty of time to find your purpose. And we lie down on the earth, and you feel the soil rising up around you. You feel your body begin to break down and merge with the soil, and you are not afraid. Your bones rest with the earth, and the silence, and the stillness, and the peaceful darkness, and you rest, and you heal. And your bones rest with the earth until the soil begins to warm, and you feel yourself regenerating. You dig deeply into the earth around you, and you draw power from the earth. You feel yourself begin to rise up through the soil, and you find yourself once again whole and near the water. But you notice as you look up, the sky is full of stars, and the moon illuminates your path and reflects upon the water. You feel the cool night air upon your skin that reflects the moonlight and radiates an inner glow. You feel a rhythm rising within you, rising up from the voices of your ancestors, and you add the melody of your song as you brush off the dirt and you walk steadily back along the path. Move in your strength and in your confidence, and you carry the lessons of your darkness in your steps rather than on your shoulders. As we walk back to the world tree, return back along the moonlit path, back the way we came, back to the world tree, and we climb up through the roots and return. We climb up through the roots of the world tree and return, return, return. We give thanks to the tree, and we place our hands upon the bark, and the pathway that was opened now closes. But you can return at any time and sit along this river. And we step back through the veil, back through the screen of our minds, and we count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And we slowly begin to feel our body. We feel our fingers and toes. And we count up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Begin to open your eyes slowly. Feel your body. Do any grounding that is needed. Drink water. Do whatever your body needs to do. And come back to this space fully.